good conversation that's went walkabout about 20 minutes ago, and not to be found, but Brother Mark has sent out a SMS, and I'm told they'll be here in 2 minutes, so my apologies.
I said you were.
Thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Sean Burke and I'm the Provost here at Newton College. It's my great pleasure this evening, along with Father Billy Wren, the Rector, to welcome you here for this discussion. Monsignor Halleck has been here before and you're wonderful to have you back. And Frank Brennan is a regular visitor to the college, and we're delighted, Frank, that you're with us this evening. Could I just, in this brief welcome, thank Brother Mark O'Connor, who does so much work in bringing extraordinary different Catholic voices to Melbourne and to this community. And thank you, Mark, very much indeed. I'd like to introduce Tiffany Aubin, who's from the Archdiocese, the Office for Evangelization, who's going to make the introductions. Tiffany.
Thank you, Sean. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On your behalf, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of this land and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I'd also, before I introduce our international guests and our very special local guests, like to acknowledge another international guest we have in the audience this evening, and I'll ask him to stand up as well. Bishop Luis Ponce de Leon from the Diocese of the country, Swaziland, the Diocese of Mancini, just in the back there. You're very welcome, Bishop. Bishop de Leon is visiting with his colleague, Father Giorgio, and you're very welcome. We're delighted this evening to welcome Monsignor Professor Thomas Halík from Charles University in Prague. Monsignor Halík is one of the leading European theologians in the world and in our church, and we're very lucky to have him. Monsignor Halík was ordained clandestinely in 1978, and this morning I learned that it was so clandestine that even his mother didn't know he was a priest for a couple of years. This was in the backdrop of the communist regime, and he was banned for many years from speaking publicly about his faith and labelled an enemy of the regime. In the underground church, he served as a psychotherapist and pastor to drug addicts and alcoholics until the fall of communism in 1989. He later became the General Secretary of the Czech Bishops' Conference and a close advisor to Václav Havel. Monsignor Halík has said that this time under the communist regime allowed him to meet and to serve believers, atheists, agnostics, and seekers, which he talks about in his award-winning book, Patience with God. In 2014, he was awarded the prestigious Templeton Prize, which recognises people who have made exceptional contributions to affirming life's spiritual dimension through insight, discovery, or practical works. And just last month, Monsignor Halík was recognised for his work in intercultural and interreligious dialogue by being awarded an honorary doctorate from Oxford University. Tonight, our very own Frank Brennan, he too a beacon for freedom and truth, will interview the Monsignor. Professor Frank is a Jesuit priest, professor of law at Australian Catholic University, and professor at the ANU College of Law. Father Frank was awarded an officer of the Order of Australia in 1995 for his services to Aboriginal Australians, particularly as an advocate in the areas of law, social justice, and reconciliation. It's a fight he continues today. Our format for this evening will be an interview for the next 40-45 minutes, followed by an opportunity for questions. And I do want to stress they are questions. It's wonderful to see so many of you here this evening, but so that we have time to hear from all of you, could you please limit it to a question? Would you please welcome Father Frank Brennan and Monsignor Thomas Halík.
Thank you, Tiffany, and thank you, Mark, and great to be back here with you all at Newman College. And Thomas, welcome back. We were here in this room together 5 years ago. So you're among friends, and as you can see in the land down under, you have quite a few fans. But like you, we're all 5 years older. When you were here last time, I think you entranced us when we were there discussing what was then your new book, Patience with God, the story of Zacchaeus continuing in us. And you were able, in a fairly anecdotal way, to take us on your extraordinary journey. I remember, for example, you're telling us a little of your initial meetings with Havel and with Pope John Paul II. Perhaps could you just refresh our memories a little and tell us a little of your relationship with them, and in the light of the intervening 5 years, how you see their contribution, particularly to healing alienation, which is our theme for tonight.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here again. I have in Europe and America the definition of a Catholic theologian. The Catholic theologian is a person who was invited by Brother Mark to Melbourne. So, 5 years. In these 5 years, I traveled much because during the communist time, I was not allowed to travel abroad. So after the fall of communism, I visited all continents, even Antarctica. And in this last year, the United States and and South Africa and other part of the world. And I'm very happy to be here again and to have the possibility to share my experience and my ideas. So,
taking that forward, if we look back, I was wondering whether, first of all, particularly for those who haven't known you before, could you tell us just a little about your relationship with Havel and with John Paul II? I thought that might be just a good way to bring in issues of church and state.
okay. I was a friend of Václav Havel for 40 years. I met him first when I was quite a boy. He visited my father. My father was a historian of literature, and visited him. And then at the eve of the Prague Spring, '68, I was a student, and with a group of students, we met the opposition writers, and especially Václav Havel. And since that time, I was in contact with him. During this communist time, there was a circle of philosophers coming every Monday for lectures and discussions, and it was in the flat of the brother of Václav Havel. And during the holiday, we were invited to the cottage of Václav Havel in North Bohemia, and he cooked for us. He was a very good cook, and he was just listening. He had no opportunity to study at the university. So for him it was very important to listen to discussions about Ecfegerin and Levinas and Ricoeur, and he got the special gift, special intuition of an artist to discover the most important ideas and to express it then in his language of an author, of a writer. So when I read or when I listened to some speeches, the president, I always recognized the echo of our discussions. And during his presidency, he renewed the tradition which was found by Tomáš Garrigue Masaryk, the first president of the Czechoslovak Republic. Tomáš Garrigue Masaryk met every Friday in the house of the writer Karel Čapek, circle of intellectuals, and he was discussing with them. So Václav Havel also invited some lectures every second Friday to the presidential castle near Prague, and he came with microbus, and then he put the question, and we were discussing. He was just listening until 7:30. Then came the goulash and beer and the TV news, and after he asked many questions. And on 11 o'clock we had the snaps and went back to Prague. And that was the circle of his old friends, but also every time somebody new, some psychologists, philosophers, economists, lawyers, and he discussed it also with us, his international speeches and so on. So
I think for us here in Australia, this is novel in that I think our Prime Ministers every second Friday meet with the pollsters, but not with the philosophers. In hindsight, what benefit do you think there was for the state to have the President meeting so intimately with philosophers in such a concerted way?
He was a great moral authority and intellectual authority. I think there's something in the tradition of the Czechoslovak and Czech presidency which is inspired by the Platonic idea of the king philosopher. Plato wanted to have the philosopher king or king philosopher. And it was the idea which was incorporated by Tomáš Garrigue Masaryk, the founder of the Republic. He was a philosopher. And I think there was always some expectation that the head of the state should be not just a normal politician, but a moral and intellectual authority. And it was Havel. So it is no more here now. But Havel was really the man who was absolutely not a populist. He had a courage to say many things that were unpopular. For example, for reconciliation with the Sudetan Germans, and some asked for forgiveness also from the Czech side, and many topics were controversial, but he had the courage to say this. And
but given that tradition, maybe could I take you straight to contemporary situation? I was reading the almost acclamatory statement that you issued before the Brexit vote, and you were speaking with great moral authority on behalf of Europe to the people of Great Britain. You were then, I think, in Oxford within a matter of days to receive your honorary doctorate. Could you offer us some reflections there about the place of populism, principle, moral authority, when it comes to these big political questions of the age?
I'm really afraid that now in the world is the time for populists, for demagogues all over the world. Trump and also these populist parties in Europe, also in our country. I was last year, half a year at Notre Dame University in the United States, and when I came back, I was so surprised at the climate, the moral and psychological climate in the society was changed so much. The anxiety of the refugees, anxiety of Muslims, so we have practically no refugees, we have practically no Muslims. The people have absolutely no experience with Muslims, but they are so afraid. And the politicians misuse this anxiety. I try to speak about it in media, and then I receive so aggressive emails from many people. They want to be anxious. They need some fear. And I think it is not a rational anxiety. There's something, some projection. The refugees plays a role. I think there is something in the subconscious of people which we should discover. What is the real reason, the real roots of this change of the psychological climate? I think that sometimes it's a problem with the immunity system in the society. It's like in the body. Everybody of us has some cells which are not quite okay. But if the immunity system works normally, they can couple with it. And it is also in the society. There are always some diseases, there are always something negative, dangerous. But the immunity system of the society should cope with it. And if the immunity system of the society does not work properly, it is dangerous. And I think the immunity system is also religion, is also the general moral climate, it's shared values, and something happened that this immunity system does not work properly. And also that the elites are not accepted by the people.
Well, I might bring us back to the refugee question later, but Could I just press you a little further on this in terms of, I mean, what you're talking about, the immunity systems? It seems to me that part of it is the increasing rise of populism,
Yes.
but also a sense of people that they want to protest and they've lost faith in like major political parties. We've just had a major election here in Australia. It's been very long running. The votes for the major parties are at an all-time low. The votes for small protest parties, both left and right, are at an all-time high. It seems to me there's a loss of faith or trust
Yes.
in political structures.
Yes.
If that's the case, what is your role as a moral philosopher? What's the role of the prophetic discourse? How do we make a difference in terms of addressing this autoimmune deficiency in the body politic?
I think that every society has a social capital, the capital of basic trust. Trust in democracy, trust in state, trust in institutions, and I'm afraid that at least in our country, this social capital is in collapse. And I think we need the people that have the courage to speak about it openly, also in the public space. And it is very unpopular, so the politicians are thinking in the very short terms, and they are saying what the people want to listen. I remember I heard once a discussion in the talk show in Czech television with one leading politician, and after this discussion, when we were just between us, I told him, but now we are between us. You know that everything what you have said now was not true. And he's not true what it is. I know what my voter needs to hear, to listen. So it was like the pilot, truth, what it is, what it is, truth. I have no interest in truth. I have the interest in the votes of my voters, my potential voters. So it's really political cynicism. And many politicians are thinking in such a way. So it needs really the strong personalities. They are able to go against this general stream.
So could I take you back to the statement you issued before Brexit, entitled A Voice from the Heart of Europe? And I think this was just a week or two before you went to Oxford to receive your doctorate. Amongst other things, you wrote this: "My parents' generation can remember the British government's decision at the Munich Conference of 1938, at a time when the voice of isolationism, insisting on the national interest, prevailed in Britain. Prime Minister Chamberlain rejected solidarity with Czechoslovakia, a faraway country, people of whom we know nothing, which was then the last island of democracy in Central Europe, in the belief that he was preserving peace. But as always, isolationism and national selfishness had tragic consequences for Britain and the whole world." How were you received when you got to Oxford?
So I think many people in Oxford voted for Remain. So practically all professors I know there voted for Remain. There was 70% in Oxford for Remain. But when I spoke with the maid and with the taxi driver, they were against. And I asked why, and I said, oh, nobody will rule over us, and so there's a sentiment about the old empire, but it is gone. Now the Brexit could be also the beginning of the end of the Great Britain. It could be a Little Britain. The tension in Scotland and so, and I think in the 2 days war, it's not possible to solve the problems of just the national level. So the world is so interconnected. And the European Union, of course, has some problems, but it is the most rich and most successful community in today's world. And they are a new empire. There's China, there's Russia, and China and Russia now seeking to create a new Eurasia. And it could be very dangerous. The Putin's regime is really very dangerous. There are now cultures of war. There are the oligarchs, and there's the dream about the old Soviet Empire or the Russian Tsar Empire, and Putin is the man of KGB, so it is his way of thinking. And yes, and now we are losing as the West our identity. I think it's also something which has the deep connections with the refugees crisis. People are saying they are danger for our identity. But what is our identity? Many atheists in our country now say it is a danger for our Christian identity. And those people, for them the Christianity is that they hate Muslims and they hate the homosexuals, and it's all. They don't know any comment of the Ten Commandments. They never read Bible, but they are fighting for the Christian society. Sometimes the people are saying, oh, we accept just also some people in the church, we accept just the Christian. So I say, it is not a Christian answer. So Jesus would never sign this sentence. He was there for everybody who was in need. It is the Christian answer, not care only for us and our people.
Well, let me turn now from the state to the church and from Havel to John Paul II. I remember last time you were here, you had some wonderful stories for us about your first meetings with John Paul. If I recollect correctly, you were with him just before the Berlin Wall fell.
Yes, yes.
And you thought he was quite a good political pundit.
Oh, yes.
Could you
I met him
refresh our memories on
I
that?
met him one day before the fall of the Berlin Wall. It was the time of the canonization of Agnes of Prague. It was 12th of November, and we were first time allowed 11,000 pilgrims from Czechoslovakia to go to Rome. And I was through the Karnalistiker and through the possibility to ask the John Paul II for a short meeting, and I was invited for a private dinner. And first of all, the Pope asked me in which language we will speak. And I said, German or English. I said, oh, you speak wonderful Polish. I said, sorry, Father, it is not Polish. It is a Pan-Slavic Esperanto. We will Slavic Esperanto. He just came from the TV news, and he said, "This is the end of communism." And I answered, Holy Father, I'm afraid that the people infallibility doesn't work in political affairs. There will be some 5 years of perestroika. No, you must be prepared. It will come very soon. It will come in 10 days. So then I was invited to prepare his first visit to Czechoslovakia, because I was there with one Czech exile bishop, and immediately after the Velvet Revolution in November, in Christmas time, this exile bishop came to Prague, and I introduced him to Václav Havel. It was some days before his election for presidency, and Wasserhol told him it would be so good if the Pope could come to Czechoslovakia, and very soon, perhaps before the first election, a little bit to develop the peaceful atmosphere and so, and the bishop, so it's nonsense, it's prepared for 3 years at least, and so. And then he returned to Rome, and on the New Year Eve, he called me from Rome, and he said, I was again by the Holy Father. I told him about our conversation with Havel, and about the invitation. The Pope said, why not? Yeah, it's possible, but I need to have an invitation, official invitation. So he called me and said, you must go to Havel to send the invitation. So he sent the invitation. I was there the next day. It was the second day of his presidency. And then I was invited to prepare the visit of the Holy Father. I was in Vatican for 1 month, and I had the opportunity practically every day to speak with the Pope. He was prepared himself very properly for this visit. It was his first visit in the post-communist world. So he said, what should I read from Havel? And I said, perhaps what I have read it. The letters, I have read it. The Pope reads at night. It was also quite one, John Paul II, actually he didn't like so much the priest with Burr. And then he thought, like the Orthodox, I will send you to Russia. And I said, Holy Father, I can't put it off. Why? It's only touched by the Holy Father. It's like reliquia. Oh, reliquia, yeah. And when, after some years, the Dalai Lama was in our church, and we had a common meditation, so the Dalai Lama taught me, oh, here, we are my brothers. We are my brothers here. Come here, the message. And he touched my bird, so I say it is the only beard in the world which was touched by the Holy Father, the Pope, and by His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. I can sell it very.
Now, 5 years ago when you were with us, you drew some comparisons between the style of John Paul and Benedict, and you seem to be suggesting that Benedict was more a pope of what we might call the remnant church, whereas John Paul you thought more open to the world. Tell us, we have a new pope now, Francis. What's your take on him?
So I love him. And I think this, the Pope Francis, the new era of Christianity is coming. And I think that in the last years, we were so over-occupied with the things like the sexual morale and so on. Maybe the abuse scandal was the natural answer of the world to this our concern on the sexual. So, look at yourself in the world. So, and now the Pope Francis has the courage to say it was something like the neurotical obsession. Just to concern with such of things. They are important, but they are not the most important. And he discovered for us the gospel again. And he shows us what is really substantial for the Christianity, the message of mercy, and love as a solidarity, especially the solidarity with the poor, the responsibility for the nature, and our openness for dialogue with other cultures and other religions. It was the message of Vatican II. So I think when I read the first sentence of Gaudium et Spes, that the hope and anxiety of the people of contemporary world are the hopes and anxiety of the church. It sounds like a marriage vow. So the church has promised the people of today love and fidelity and respect, right, by the wedding. And after 50 years, we should ask if the church has fulfilled this promise of fidelity, love, and respect to the contemporary world. And I think that perhaps the world was not, and the church, mature enough to accept the whole impulse of what it can do, and we needed some period. And I think John Paul II and Benedict closed one period of history with great dignity, really with great dignity. And I knew both. Last year I was invited by Pope Benedict to Castel Gandolfo for his circle of his pupils. They are like the Carnation born and other. And I met him also. He is very fragile bodily, but his mind is absolutely clear. And I realized that yes, it was, and also his resignation was act of courage and dignity. But now is a new era and new inspiration. But I think this so-called revolution of Pope Francis needs also the support of the theologians, because the Vatican II was also the fruit of the work of great theologians. It doesn't appear just from heaven. And I think this courage of Pope Francis needs also to have the backing from the theologians. So for me personally, it's also sort of challenge. And I ask some theologians, social Charles Taylor and others, that we should perhaps develop some vision for the church for the future. Is opening the door, and it's a challenge, it's a task.
Coming back to the refugee issue and looking at Pope Francis, I mean, take his first pastoral visit there to Lampedusa and then his recent visit to the island of Lesbos. Very prophetic statements, very prophetic stands just by going to these places. How do we hold together those prophetic utterances together with the political imperatives within these democratic states of Europe who are anxious about identity, economic security, border protection, issues of that sort?
So I think it's very important. It's possible to listen good from you? Yeah. Yeah, I think that the most important of this gesture of Pope Francis is to realize that those people are really human beings. For many people, it is first of all a danger, somebody who will eat from our table. And he said they are human beings, and it's natural that they want to have the better future for themselves and for the children. So it's something surprising to many people. Of course, the problem of refugees is complicated. We cannot accept all of them, and we should also to recognize that part of them are really the refugees. They are in danger, in great danger, and part of them are victims of some sellers of hopes. And some people, they have they promise them the better economic life in Europe, and now many of them are disappointed. They expected they will be welcome, and it is not so easy. So, and of course, maybe that there are also some agents of the Islamic State. So, and it is not easy to recognize who is really in danger, and who has the legal and moral right to be accepted, and for the people they are more the victims of this hopes for the economic prosperity and so on. So it's a question for lawyers, for politicians, for economists. But the Pope said the most important thing: they all are human beings.
Now, I want to move on to some of your own writing, because you weren't given the Templeton Prize and a doctorate for being good friends with presidents and popes alone. In your most recent book that we have in English, Knights of the Confessor, I'd just like to take a few quotes from there and get your feedback. But just to note that when you were given the honorary doctorate at Oxford, the Chancellor, in moving the admission, simply stated in this one eloquent sentence: "Noble example of charity, in whose writing ancient wisdom is interpreted with new understanding."
You know,
A very fine tribute.
You know,
Yeah. In terms of that, in the Knights of the Confessor, I know you start with the paradigm almost of paradox, and that the Christians that often we too readily separate out passion, death and resurrection, and as you say at one stage, a great deal within ourselves, within the church, within our faith and within our certainties has to die off, to be crucified, in order to make room for the resurrected one. Could you please share some reflection with us about that?
I think that really material faith is the faith of Easter, which must sometimes die and be resurrected. I think that the real material faith should go through this dark night of the soul. And I think there are the individual dark night of the souls, but there are also some collective dark night of the souls. And I think the experience of the 20th century was for many people the experience of the dark night of the soul, but it's always a chance, the purification, the challenge to go deeper. And I think in our individual story, I wouldn't like to generalize it, but sometimes our childish faith is in crisis. And when people say goodbye to church, to faith, but it is also the chance to go deeper, to be liberated from some religious illusions, and to go to the native faith, and also some very enthusiastic converts. And I convert myself, and I accompanied so many converts. I know that after some time they have a disillusion, so they are confronted with some weakness in the church and so on, and they recognize that the work and the life is not so simple, and that they cannot expect from the church the simple answers for all questions. And they are also in crisis, but this crisis is the opportunity to find their own way. And I think the real mature phase is the phase of the second wind, the phase which is going through the dark moment. For me, this cry of Jesus, my God, why have you forsaken me, is the cornerstone of my theology. I think that also Christ had to go through this hell, and it was the wound in his heart, and this deep moment of the emptiness of the when Chesterton said once that if somebody, if the atheist could choose the religion, they should choose Christianity, because in Christianity God himself was for a while an atheist. And I think that, and I say also many non-believers, that there are many sorts of atheism. There is also superficial atheism and so on, materialism. But there is also this painful atheism of the people. They are so fascinated with the evil in the world and the evil in their own life. And I'm saying then that it is a participation on the Good Friday. One Czech poet, Jan Zahradníček, who spent many years in the communist prison, said that the totalitarian regimes wanted to stop the history in the afternoon of Good Friday. And I think for many people, they have mystical participation on this Good Friday, on this cry of Jesus, my God, why have you forsaken me? And I think it's a deep, deep experience of faith. But our answer is, it is not the last word. After the dark hour of Good Friday, the morning of Easter is coming. But I think without this experience, we cannot accept the whole message of resurrection.
It seems to me in your writing that you're most at home with the genuine searching non-believer rather than with the religious authority or the militant atheist who says it's simple and they have all the answers.
Yes, I spoke about it this morning, about this dwellers and seekers, I think, and not only me, it's Richard Bucknow and Charles Taylor.
Charles Taylor was using the same terminology.
Yes, that if I heard that the Czech Republic is the most atheistic country in the world, I'm always saying, we cannot evaluate it just after the number of people in the church. So the main difference is now not between the so-called believers and non-believers, but between the dwellers and the seekers. And the number of the dwellers, of the people, they are fully identified with the church, the teaching and the institution, is decreasing. Also is decreasing the number of the dwellers in the dogmatic atheism. But the number of seekers is increasing. They are among the believers, they are also people, and more. For them, the faith is not just the treasure of Satanists, but a way. We are Communio Viatorum, we are the Society of Pilgrims. And also for many non-believers, they are not no more the dogmatic materialists. They are also seekers, but they didn't find their home in the institutional church. And then are also some people, they are just in between. They are simul fidelis et infidels. They are at the same time believers and non-believers. There are people, they are praying in the night, but during the day they are quite secular people. And the opposite, there are some very religious people. They, in the night, they have a deep doubts. And so there are many people, they are both. They are changing the position, the believer, and I think in every believer is also a non-believer, and in many non-believers is also a hidden believer, and the dialogue between belief and non-belief is not a dialogue between, or the struggle between two teams like in the soccer. It is the dialogue inside of many people in their heart and in their minds. And sometimes the people, they are, the believers, for example, they are not able to withstand their doubts and critical questions. They are projecting their doubts on the others. And then they can beat it and to struggle with it. But they are, in fact, struggling with their own shadows. And I think to the material belief belongs also the courage to accept my own doubts, my own open questions, because also the believer has an open questions. The certainty, the full certainty, is an eschatological goal.